But I think it's time to head back in.
Okay. Can we come back?
Sure.
Tomorrow?
Let's check with Mom. Hey, be careful getting out of the boat.
It's a kayak, Dad.
I'm going to return the kayak. Just make sure you have everything.
Yep. Can we walk home?
How about a taxi? 233 North Maple, please.
It's a short fare from your neighborhood to your naturehood. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a neighborhood park or green space near you. Also, find fun activities to do like boating and biking or camping and hiking, plus much more. It's all right in your naturehood.
Best day ever.
A public service announcement brought to you by the Ad Council and the U.S. Forest Service.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. It has absolutely been one hell of a week. I don't think anyone could have predicted it turning out the way that it has and the many things that happened during it. So this is our chance during the week to review all of that and expand even further beyond it because, of course, having made it through the week, though close to the weekend, it's almost inside here, and that long holiday weekend going to be very much appreciated. That means it's time for Free for All Friday, which means that we are taking on all of your comments and calls throughout both hours of the show today here. So wanted to chime in over on the social media outlets, again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, the places to do that. You have some comments that came through a lot of those different mediums here recently, and a whole lot more. Got those calls available as well. 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM is the number to call if you're wanting to chime in during the show. And again, that will be open throughout both hours there. So if you're wanting to chime in now, you're more than welcome to. Again, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We got comments coming in from all those places here, and already dropping that like over on the Facebook page at Flaco Jimenez. We do appreciate that. Just helps with the algorithmic things and helps us in our continuing mission to have live local talk radio here in the borderland. Still a bunch of things even happening at this point. I mean, the continuing development of the entire situation in Uvalde, and more specifically, what the actual timeline and what happened there, still very much in contention today, with Texas Governor Greg Abbott saying directly that he was misled and is livid about it, the police response in Uvalde in the massacre there. And so that response very much continuing, telling reporters specifically that every bit of information he was given by investigators the day before was wrong. That police admitted they waited for nearly an hour for reinforcements before breaching the classroom door where the gunman was holed up. And of course, a Department of Public Safety director has now said in the area, has said that it was the wrong decision. And Abbott is now demanding a thorough investigation into what happened inside Robb Elementary when the gunman shot and killed 21 people, including, of course, 19 children. So there may be a new set of laws to come out after the shooting here. So that fallout very much still happening. RJ saying, yeah, more like what didn't happen. Unfortunately, yeah, the stories and some of the specifics coming out about this, a lot is still unclear, we'll freely admit. And the timelines and the further investigation probably being needed here. I know someone said that, why not have the Texas Rangers involved? I wouldn't be surprised if that or some other, at least state-level agency, not sure if it might just be DPS itself here, state troopers, but yeah, this whole situation is still unfortunately decently fluid, even in these couple of days after the immediate incident. So I would fully expect more information to be coming out. But one thing that Governor Greg Abbott is further saying is that he's absolutely going to be looking at further response to this situation with the upcoming legislative session. Just looking further ahead, we are a little bit more than a year out, half a year rather out at this point from the next Texas legislative session. And yeah, this is absolutely the time frame in which laws and policies are getting formulated, because once you're in the session, it's basically pedal to the metal, go, 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 because that's only 6 months that the Texas legislature is in session every 2 years. So if you don't already have the plan, policy, the law written up as it is, you're already well behind the 8 ball. But something he says more specifically is that he is hoping that there's going to be addressing healthcare in the state, saying directly, quote, that there's an array of healthcare issues we face as a state in general, but there is an array of health issues that relate to those who commit gun crimes in particular, going on to say the status quo is unacceptable. This crime is unacceptable. We're not going to be talking about it and do nothing about it. We'll be looking for the best laws that we can get passed to make our communities and schools safer. Specifically asked by a reporter on the question about AR-15s and 18-year-olds. Specifically, as has been brought up here on the book, has been brought up here by a number of our callers and commenters. So, governor saying, quote, so for a century and a half, 18-year-olds could buy rifles, and we didn't have school shootings, but we do now. Maybe we're focusing our attention on the wrong thing. Also being noted, he did cancel his appearance at the NRA in Houston, though apparently a recorded message was being played there. He has also specifically not ruled out the possibility of a special session even before that. So there's probably a lot of legal implications coming out of this. Flaco Jimenez saying to that that the shooter broke a number of gun laws. More laws is not the answer. And John Brazelton saying it's easy to armchair quarterback people after the game is over. Most reporters have never been in the military, let alone combat. During combat conditions, some people hid, some people fight a little bit, and a few people fight like hell and save everyone's butt. I mean, yeah, the fog of war, as you're kind of referring to there, is very real here. But, I mean, yeah, armchair quarterbacking is one thing, but the immediate analysis of this, again, in the unfortunate situation that we've had a lot of analysis coming out about this, everything I've seen, and I find myself agreeing with the most, as not an expert in any way in this field, but having, well, read a lot on all of these subjects, that the faster the response is, usually the better outcomes can be had. That is one across the very many different types of situations that have been in call, the different types of shootings that have been happening in the modern era. If it is still active, then you need to act. That is the plain and simple, and what a lot of departments that I've been reading about have been transitioning to, not this hold up and wait, but part of, again, and it's still a lot of confusion here, but what I am seeing consistently being referred to here is that essentially the decision was made to wait for reinforcements because the thought was, at least on some on the ground, the full scope of knowledge here is also a little bit at question, but at least some in decision-making capacities on the ground in Uvalde have the thought that it was no longer considered an active shooting situation, but rather that it was a barricaded subject, which is another type of situation that particularly special weapons and tactics units, more commonly known as SWAT, are often tasked to deal with and require its own level of response here. But hindsight being 2020, absolutely, very obviously the wrong decision. So who knew what when is pretty much going to be a major factor of the continuing timeline building and further response into this here. But as I have said, this is, of course, Free for All Friday. That's just one thing on the docket here as well. We also have a new veto coming out from the mayor here in El Paso today on the renewed city manager contract extension. So, yeah, we got a lot going on in and around the area, but even beyond that, we are taking those calls and comments on any subject today. Just keep it clean if you're calling in. That number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have a call on the line here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Jerry from Northwest.
Hey there, Jerry.
How you doing, Andrew?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
Well, I've done some research on the shootings and people claiming that other countries don't have these mass shootings, and they're wrong. They need to look up John Lott's book, right? He wrote a book back in 2016 that refuted a lot of their claims. Some of the claims that people are making is that this doesn't happen in other civilized nations. Well, it has happened in other civilized nations, a lot of them. France is one of the worst ones. And then there were some in Sweden, and then there were some in that island down by Australia. I can't remember the name of it.
New Zealand.
But anyway, the ratio per million, the EU versus the United States. The EU has 0.089 per million people, and correction, 0.083 per million people, and the U.S. has 0.089 million people that were injured or killed in the same time period. So it's 0.006 difference, which is not very much. Now you got to consider that the EU is a lot smaller as far as population than the United States. We have 320 million people approximately, and the EU is a lot smaller. But there's some of the places that do have had mass shootings was France, Switzerland, Finland, Belgium, Czech Republic, and there were others. And the reason why people don't know or don't see them in Great Britain is because they've outlawed guns. Particularly, you have to have a license and go through a heavy background check. But they also had the outlaw of knives. Even knives, kitchen knives.
Yep.
So it's not the gun that's the problem. It's the people controlling the tool. And as far as assault goes, the word assault weapon, you can do an assault verbally on somebody. You can assault somebody verbally. So assault is a word that describes an action. So they're wrong when they say that it's because of assault weapons. I also looked up the FBI statistics, and correction, it wasn't the FBI. It was the Secret Service statistics. And in every case of mass shootings since 2007 to 2016, in every case, there were some instances or revealing that the individual had mental deficiencies. So in every case of the mass shootings, so people need to look at the how well the person is mentally before they start blaming other things. And that's my 2 cents worth, Andrew.
I mean,
Thank you, sir.
No, sure, absolutely. Here, I mean, yeah, comparison between the EU and the U.S. is an interesting one to be made because, yeah, there are some countries that are a little bit smaller here on the balance. Most of the continent is within about 100 million or so of the estimated population of the United States, of course. Here, so that's an interesting comparison to be made here, and a phrase that comes to mind here. Well, there's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics. I think I'm badly quoting Mark Twain there. I think that's who that quote's been attributed to. That, yes, there may be truth, facts, and otherwise, things you can refer to and verify, but that also in doing analysis on those, there's ways that it can be twisted. There's ways that can be made to shift and fit, well, a narrative, shall we say. I think that's been more than a little bit part of the resistance to the idea of having further study on these issues, particularly within the United States itself. That's about the major reason I can think of why that would have been in place, because of the concern about how such statistics, even if it may show one way, can be then, well, skewed to show another. That has certainly happened here. And yeah, I found that secretservice.gov study you're talking about last out in 2019 that the vast majority 67%, 64% 2017, 2018 67%, and then in 2019 it was 46%, so slightly lower there, had some kind of mental health, any mental health condition as it's listed in the report there. So I think I'm finding similar information there. I mean, yeah, there's anyone that is going to go and do that situation is I think all more or less automatically going to be considered not of sound mind, because to consider that as they just had a really bad day, now that doesn't cut it, just plain and simple. But that's why I'm kind of, even though there's that concern about stats, I find myself in favor of doing further study into this, but making sure it's of a correct scope also, I think, is important, because if it's a, essentially politically motivated thing, yeah, there's going to be essentially the backwardsness of the scientific process. It's not going to be do a study, look at the evidence, and come to conclusion and say, well, here's a conclusion, let's find the evidence that then supports it, and flawed in that way. Yeah. So a lot more comments coming in on this, so I appreciate the point in the call there. We're just getting started here for Free for All Friday. Again, you're listening to Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. We're taking those comments and calls on the line throughout the show here A lot coming in over on the social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And if you want to get on the phone line, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. If you're on the line there, stay there. If you want to call in, again, that number, 915-544-5876. Back after this brief break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound at Geronimo, an injury accident, and another injury accident at Edgemere, eastbound at Rich Bean Boulevard. Got a crash at Americas Avenue, northbound at Socorro Road, where you could take Pan American Drive as an alternate. And watch for a crash with injuries on Sunset Drive, west of Donovan at Emory Road. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
We'll bring you the story of how Pez, yes, the candy dispenser, made its way across the Atlantic Ocean from Austria and became a staple of American culture and changed merchandising practices here as well. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa here, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Once again, we were El Paso's #1 dealer in Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram sales in April. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas.
The Memorial Day sales event starts now at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. And there's never been a better time to get more for your old car, truck, or SUV. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we want it. So you can save big on every new and certified pre-owned vehicle in our huge inventory. 2022 Ram 1500 trucks with 0 APR for 60 months. All new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer full-size SUV with third row seating. 0 APR for 60 months. 0 payments for 90 days. Plus, we have aggressive lenders with great rates and terms, even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR 1667 per thousand financed on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. This spring, you can share your own observations about nature with scientists and play a critical role in scientific discovery by adding to their data collection. Discover more about citizen science programs such as monitoring weather, observing plants and animals, and more. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/trial. That's ZipRecruiter.com/trial.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of 2 people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show, particularly on a day like today. Of course, we have made it through to just the cusp of the weekend, Friday, meaning we are definitely in time for Free for All Friday. We'll have those comments and calls throughout both hours of the show, taking on any subject, just for calling in. Keep it clean as you can. We have those deadly words we have to worry about, but we'll still take on the subject. Anyway, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. The number to call there. A lot of comments coming in already, tuning in, chiming in. We have Kathy Codry, RJ, John Brazelton, Flaco Jimenez, and more. Also dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate Elisa Flores, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Flaco Jimenez. Just helps us in all the aspects of the online parts anyway, having the live local conversation here in El Paso. RJ saying that some cops or CBP went in and removed their own kids. There are school shootings in a school. Who do they think is in danger? Again, that's part of the timeline that is a little bit confused at this point. But yes, have been hearing similar things and similar parts of it. So there definitely needs to be a full look at this and lessons learned. Because if this is just done as a, well, that happened and let's never think about this again, I'm sure someone would like to do that, but that cannot be acceptable. Just flat out at this point. If things aren't changing in some way from this and lessons learned, we are definitely going to be having further problems here. Catherine Codry saying that during an interview today, they stated that a teacher propped the door open that the shooter entered the school. A teacher is guilty for the killings. First off, yes, that has been said today that at least some of the timelines that are now being put out, that it was roughly a few minutes right before it was that the incident began, that a teacher propped open the door. Haven't seen the reason why, but I wouldn't go as far to say, culpability and contribution to the situation, again, if it does bear out, obviously, but to say that they are therefore responsible, I'm not going to go quite that far, though. Again, security and how we deal with it and making sure that needs are thought about. Usually schools aren't thought about and classrooms as fortresses, something that's meant to be impenetrable. It's meant to be facilitating learning and comfort of students, because if they are, worried about ventilation, I know I've been in classrooms, the AC has gone out. And so we had to prop open doors, open things, allow for ventilation, or we would have been sweltering in there. I am going to guess, without any firm evidence here, that may have been somewhat of the situation there. So balancing the needs and security is at least one of those key concerns out of here. Maria Coleman saying the only guilty party here is the perpetrator. Would fully agree with that. Dottie Butler Torres saying parents, volunteer for your child's school, volunteer to work mornings and afternoons at crosswalks, be involved, be visible and helpful. That is frankly good advice regardless of the situation, but particularly in highlight right now out of this whole situation, being involved and knowing what's going on. I've been saying for a minute now, the idea of just saying, well, they'll take care of everything. In what part of life does that work otherwise? So to just say, well, I have absolved myself of responsibility, they'll take care of it all and I don't have anything to worry about. Again, that doesn't work regularly, even without violence involved. But with this being talked about today, yeah. Then we have a comment also saying, reserve any opinion until the facts are fully known, but I do have a difficult time with lies or a cover-up. The families deserve the facts. A phrase that has been bumping around my head here as we've been dealing with the timeline and the inaccuracies within it and the contradictions that have been coming out has been that the cover-up is almost worse than the crime here. Not sure that totally applies in this case, but, well, if there was any bad decisions made on the part of local officials there, them trying to keep that from coming to light definitely is not going to work in their favor in the long run here. But let's get back to that phone line right now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Al in the Northeast on the line here with us right now. Al, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, how you doing, Andrew? And to your audience out there, I owe an apology. I got on the air yesterday and neglected to express my sympathy for the people in that town yesterday. I want to make up for that. But and especially as a teacher of 30 years, this really hit home with me. I remember when I was still working, I'm retired now, shortly after Columbine, I suggested that they beef up and harden the security. I was one of the first Texans to get my concealed handgun license. And I remember after stating that schools should have more security with armed guards and so forth, that my liberal colleagues, they called me a Nazi. And that, I don't know where those people come from. They're the same ilk that are giving law-abiding citizens, and especially the NRA, guilt by association. They vilify people and don't see, their own shortcomings and narrow-mindedness. It's like these entertainers who are now canceling the convention for the NRA. They're the same people who allow Beto to do the outrageous thing that he did yesterday, yet they criticize Trump for being a little bit caustic in some of his remarks and the way that his mannerisms offended them. Yet they allow Beto to do the most outrageous political thing. Same thing happened in Minnesota, where I'm from, when a senator died in a plane crash and the Clintons rushed there and politicized that. It seems to be a pattern that the Democrats have, blaming others for their stupidity and letting no crisis go to waste.
Well, I'll certainly agree with you on the idea that sympathy is going out to everyone involved in this. I had some years back a reason to be involved, volunteering actually over a summer with the Victims Services Department, actually at the local DA under previous district attorneys here, obviously. And one phrase that has stuck with me from that time is that the victim is the only person that did not choose to be involved in this process. And it has stuck with me for years because it's both true and instructive. The fact that the people who have been dragged into this through literally no fault of their own have, well, much deference and much need that needs to be addressed for them. So fully agree with you on that. To your other point there about, well, essentially the differences between what you see as otherwise similar actions between politicians. I'll say that the real difference here is, and I see this in a lot of ways, is whether you agree or not with the point being made, that the mannerism almost doesn't matter or falls by the wayside as soon as it switches one way or the other. That there have been some who agree with what O'Rourke did and probably then therefore disagreed with what the president did, and that's the defining line for them in that case, is my reading of that.
Well, let me echo one quick point that Jerry made from the Northwest. When they blame guns and they want new gun laws, that's kind of like blaming cars for death accidents, or swimming pools for drownings. And in Japan, I know that knives and bats have been used as deadly weapons. There was even a guy in Scandinavia, I think it was Sweden, who was on video using a bow and arrow going around and killing, a mass murderer. And then you have the machetes in the United Kingdom, in Britain. I mean, Come on. The United States is not the only place that has mentally ill people and people who have been driven to this kind of violence by the culture things that are going on in this country. How many deaths does the average 18-year-old see on TV and in video games? And you can't tell me that doesn't desensitize them tremendously. Even if it's 0.001% of the young people that fall victim to this type of brainwashing, that's too many, but it happens.
Well, fully agree with you that there's one comment that came in yesterday, and I'll admit I missed it from over on YouTube. And since we got you here, you brought it up, and I wanted to highlight it here. Ranger over on Twitter responding here saying that for the armed teachers' proposals to work, the government must find teachers who are able and willing to kill their own student, parenthetical, if one were to be the shooter, and parents who are willing to give their children to teachers who would take such a commitment, was the comment made there in response to our show yesterday over again on the Twitter page. So given that, I think you brought up some of those implications yesterday from some of the programs. Your thoughts on that?
Well, that's fine. But you have retired policemen, you have retired military people, you have to have a real stringent vetting and training program. And you're talking about degrees of defense too here. I've been a martial arts trainer for self-defense. I've trained hundreds and hundreds of people, women especially, in self-defense for years. And the gun is not the only lethal weapon that you can stop one of these madmen with.
All right, fair enough here. Well, thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
All right, you have a good holiday.
Yeah, you as well. Have a good one there. Of course, bringing up here, we are on the cusp of Memorial Day. Question coming on over on the social media as well. A.W. Hill asking, what time is that flag laying tomorrow? A very good point to be made. Specifically, it will be happening out at Fort Bliss National Cemetery, 5200 Fred Wilson Avenue. That's 5200 Fred Wilson Avenue on Saturday. So that is tomorrow. 7:30 a.m. and snacks and refreshments will be provided. That specific event referring to here put on by Yucca Council Boy Scouts of America. So again, that being tomorrow, 7:30 a.m., Fort Bliss National Cemetery, 5200 Fred Wilson Avenue. Basically, you get off 54 if you're headed northbound on 54, so from most points in El Paso, and then you're going to take that Fred Wilson exit, go under Spur 601, and it's a separate entrance. You're not going on to Fort Bliss through the main gates. There is an important note to make. look it up on maps if you got any questions, but that's how it works. So happily able to say that because that is, of course, an important reason for, well, the long weekend we have, of course, coming up. We got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we will be getting to more comments, calls, and everything we do on Fridays here on the show. So again, if you're wanting to chime in, that number to do so is, of course, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned. If, of course, you're thinking about coming together as your own family over this weekend, however you choose to celebrate the holiday is, well, up to you. But oftentimes, of course, food and family gatherings are involved. Don't have any problem with that. And, of course, if you're wanting to come together and make it, well, maybe a better tasting holiday than it has previously, really got to direct you to our friends over at Enhanced Flavors. Enhanced Flavors, you can find them at enhancedflavors.com. That's enhanced with a D. Flavors.com, because they have a great selection, locally available varieties of extra virgin olive oils, flavored olive oils, and of course balsamic vinegars sourced from the greatest places that make those around the world, and then of course brought straight to your front door. They're going to be out in various places in the community. Got to see them out at Beer Fest last weekend, and this weekend they're going to be out there at the New Mexico Wine Fest at the Southern New Mexico Fairgrounds. But in any case, you can find them online, enhancedflavors.com. See their full selection and make those choices. Great for marinades, particularly if you're thinking about firing up the grill. You really want to think about using this to really help spice up your life. Again, the place to find them, enhanced with a D, flavors.com.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olgain with your KFOX 14 news update. Some local school districts are pushing for more school resource officers in the wake of the Uvalde, Texas school shooting. The Gadsden School District has 27 campuses, yet only one of them has a school resource officer. That's at Santa Teresa Middle School. In Las Cruces, the school district says it's been dealing with a shortage of school resource officers, but promises that by next year, they will be fully staffed throughout middle schools and high schools with school resource officers. Former El Paso congressman and candidate for governor of Texas, Beto O'Rourke, spoke at a huge protest in Houston today. The demonstration took place in front of the venue where the NRA is holding its annual convention this weekend. Thousands gathered today to call on the Rifle Association to cancel its event in the wake of the Uvalde shooting. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has canceled his appearance at that convention, but it's set to continue this weekend. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olgain.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Checking your El Paso traffic. Zaragoza northbound at the 10 Gateway. An accident there with police responding. Sunland Park on ramp westbound at the I-10. An accident reported there. I-10 westbound at Geronimo. An accident blocking the left shoulder involving 4 vehicles all off to the left there. Expect delays. And 375 Loop Memorial Highway northbound at Pelicano. A stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Studios, I'm forecaster Vania Castillo. We're in for some dry and hot conditions here in the borderland starting Friday, continuing into Saturdays. We'll also be seeing those winds become breezy to windy this weekend and continuing into early next week. Now, temperatures are going to be pretty warm this weekend as we are expecting to see temperatures in the triple digits for your Saturday and Friday, but we do see them cool down a little bit for your Sunday.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
We'll bring you the story of how Pez, yes, the candy dispenser, made its way across the Atlantic Ocean from Austria, became a staple of American culture, and changed merchandising practices here as well. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Wondering if the COVID vaccine is right for your child? If you can trust it? I'm Ernest Grant, president of the American Nurses Association, and we want you to know we trust the COVID vaccines. For ourselves, for our patients, for our kids. So should you.
We can do this. Find a vaccine near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the big stories and impacts on the borderland every weekday at 4. Brought to you in part by Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon, official hair and beard sponsor of the show. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Did you know that were it not for a smallpox outbreak in a Continental Army camp during the Revolutionary War, Canada may never have existed? Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690 KTSM, an iHeart radio station.
Okay, forest animals, kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow, have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. River, how's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man.
I love it. Turtle.
He's not here yet, man.
He's late every morning. Okay. Squirrel.
The forest has been preparing just for you. To learn more about cool things to do in the forest, visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on our various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. We do monitor most of those comments here. I've been a little bit lax on the Twitter, I will freely admit, but if you're sending us those messages, responses to them, we've got those pulled up as well. Just can't pop them up on screen is the upshot, I guess. But with most of the other ones we can. Of course, we have the phone line as well. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of comments, a lot of calls, a lot of likes coming in. We do appreciate it. Calvin Williams, Carl McCaig, Lizio Flores, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Flaco Jimenez all joined in with us in our mission to help us, well, continue talking about live local talk radio and the issues that we come up with here in the borderland. A lot more comments coming in. AW Hill, appreciating, knowing again, in case you missed it before the break, that event coming up tomorrow, Saturday, 7:30 a.m., Fort Bliss National Cemetery, 5200 Fred Wilson Avenue for the Memorial Day flag placement. Got the chance to go out there previously in previous times. Not going to tomorrow because we, of course, have the El Paso History Radio Show tomorrow. Shameless plug. But, of course, if you want to go out there, send us some pictures. We love to put those up as well. RJ over on the social media saying those days of open campus need to end. It's time for guards with ARs to protect the schools or describe the laws that saves the children for me. Again, the idea of there being just armed guards at every entrance, I know at a certain point it seems necessary, but also at what point are we all then balancing the needs and safety and security, but also ability to learn of our children? Again, I'm not saying that you're on the wrong track here. I'm just wondering how far we need to go, unfortunately. And it may seem like all the way at this point in time here. Heather Godry saying that the claim the teacher that propped the door open was retrieving a cell phone. Again, the balance between safety, security, and just like physical human need, particularly when we're talking about kids. So, yeah, I wasn't saying that it was just for a ventilation thing. That's just from my personal experience, why I've had and seen similar situations like that, yes, I do look a little bit back on wondering what could have happened. So, yeah, we also have Edgar Ortiz on a board with us and Maria Coleman saying that the lives of victims is always too high a price to pay, but lessons are learned in the darkest of times. Those affected may go on a different path in their life, go on to help others and touch the lives of their journey. Good can evolve from evil. We'll agree with you there. If the inciting incident is all too tragic and ultimately avoidable in a lot of ways. Let's go back to those calls right now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We have Frankie and Messia on the line here with us right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
Hot diggity dog. All right, let me start off by saying this. In November 1863 in Gettysburg, President Abraham Lincoln probably said the most impactful 236 words that anybody could have ever said. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. Mm-hmm. The corollary to that is those that are governed, only the wish to govern, are only at the behest of those that are governed. Now, having said that, you know how I beat up on Abbott and Costello and Stud Cruds and the rest of the conservative kooks and creeps out there? Well, let me tell you something. That's 10%. They are responsible 10%. The other 90% are those people that wish to be governed. And there you have it. And I said this once before. Mm-hmm. You cannot operate a democracy, any democracy, if you've got the majority of the electorate that are unintelligible, ignorant, and misinformed. It will not work in the long run. Mm-hmm. And that's my main point I want to point out. What do you think of that?
I mean, absolutely. Again, this was a shot called by founding fathers Thomas Jefferson and others, saying that an informed citizenry is the core of any successful exercise of government. Because sure, I mean, and other ways have been put, that the government only exists with the consent of the governed is another way to put it. And if the governed aren't able to consent because they're either too young, that certainly we usually supposed to grow out of, but because they don't have the capacity or the education or the understanding necessary to, that's why I have both at various times been very pessimistic and optimistic about the future of this country, because at certain points you see, to quote George Carlin, think about how stupid the average person is and then realize that by the very definition, it means half are dumber than that. Sure, that has a level of concern, but then the people who are actively working to understand, read, the founding documents, Constitution, and all that good stuff, and understand how the system of government work, I always applaud those efforts. And anytime I see it happening, other organizations I've been involved in or community groups coming together to have these discussions, I am enthused about the possibilities, but it does take that constant effort. Government and education is never something to be achieved and then therefore concreted in place forever. It takes that constant, which a lot of people, because at a certain point it becomes unsexy. It's not fun to say, well, okay, we got to teach more about this. We have to keep doing it, but installing it, instilling it, and keeping it going is the only way. And I do mean the only way we're going to be able to continue forward, because otherwise we're just relying on good luck at that point. Just to say, well, let's hope that the people who do choose to vote happen to choose otherwise benevolent people that know that most people aren't paying attention and hopefully won't try to get away with stuff. And that is not a great recipe for long-term, prosperity of a country.
Well, as always, Andrew, you really just nail it. But the operative word here is optimism. That's what you have to have. And if we don't have that as a nation, we are finished. It's just end of watch. End of story. I mean, you have a nice weekend now.
No, you as well. Appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one.
Okay, bye.
All right, appreciate it there. Tell you what, just think we'll squeeze in another quick call here. Again, that number to call if you wanted to get on the line, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Catherine, some others saying that dumbing down of the masses and other things like that. I mean, there may or not be efforts going along that way. We're getting a little bit out of what I can firmly comment on and say for certain, but I will say is that it will probably happen without involvement. Optimism, I have long thought that what has separated the United States from a lot of other forms of government. I don't even necessarily think that we have the simple, most advanced one on earth. I think there's some parts that we could take and use to modify our own system coming from more parliamentary-based systems without doing a complete changeover. But really what has allowed it to function this long is the simple belief and activity of those who believe in the systems and want to see it continue. Speaking about governmental systems here, it is only as strong as the people involved with it. So if people aren't involved, I mean, even just not running for office, but literally paying attention and actually going out to vote, that's where I think the cracks really start to show, and I get the most concerned. Because, I mean, men are not angels, and these systems were designed in large part, particularly at the federal level, to deal with these vagaries of human spirit and of optimism and of, emotion. But without actual people that are dedicated to it getting involved, that's when real trouble starts to come out here. Ted Core saying that U.S. is not a democracy. It is a representative republic, also known as a democratic republic, because true, simple republics, the electors were chosen. They were not voted on by the people. So it was a combination of systems here. I get your general point here, but we do, of course, talk about, ideals of how people should be involved in government. Take away from it that, if you will. Let's get to that phone line here real quick. One more call we'll get before this next break. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much. Over the past week, I've talked about possible solutions, to keep guns out of the hands of people under 21.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the most important things is make sure mental health and juvenile records are part of the National Instant Check system.
Yeah, I've heard similar proposals out there, and some of the things that have come up at those points in time, we're just kind of restarting those discussions this time around, unfortunately. So I haven't heard a little bit of it so far, but the major objections that have come up to that in the past is, okay, then what, particularly on the mental health side of things, the juvenile situation and the unsealing of records having included there is another kettle of fish. That hasn't come up as much, but particularly on the mental health side of things. The idea that then your mental health status could impair, well, legal rights, essentially, if you want to boil it down to it. We're, of course, talking about one in particular here, but anytime something gets codified and action starts happening with it, I mean, the simple example I can give is with Social Security. It was meant to be a program as well to get benefits into retirement, and now it is essentially your ID number. It is something that is in very much other places of life. So that's kind of what I'm talking about there, if you take the meaning. So I think that's the level of concern that comes with it, that if there starts being something that restricts your rights based on a non-judicial process specifically, that could therefore be further expanded and have unforeseen consequences, has been some of the major, well, detractors putting forth to that kind of an idea.
Yes, I agree on that. It can have consequences. But, when I worked with the probation department, and I will tell you this much, they use, both probation and parole use what's known as a TRAS, Texas Risk Assessment System. And past criminal history, including juvenile offenses, are a good indicator of future conduct. Okay, and a lot of the people I worked with in the system had really lengthy juvenile records. We even had a few that were in the adult system as a result of conduct as a juvenile. They received what was known as a determinate sentence. Once they became 18 years of age, they came into the adult system as offenders. In other words, their juvenile probation was carried over into the adult probation system.
Right.
So, like I said, it's past criminal history will determine future conduct. One of the former directors of the FBI once said, "Crime control begins in the high chair," and that's something that we need to look at, is juvenile records.
Yeah, that's an interesting proposal. I honestly haven't heard that come up that much here. So again, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has said that he's willing to look at essentially new laws to come out of this, to put it kind of banally and vulgarly, lessons learned, so to speak. And I'll be curious to see if that will be a part of it, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of bills, a lot of laws coming out of this. It'll essentially be up to the governor and largely the lieutenant governor, actually, for that matter, to make some final determinations on what will succeed or what won't, again, given the chaotic nature of the entire Texas legislative process. But, there's been signaling some openness to some new possibilities, even if the gun control, well, I think we can all read the tea leaves on that one. But other ones like this, there's a possibility there. I'll be curious to see if something truly comes forth that way.
Yes. I wanted to make another point. Basically, school districts throughout the state are responsible for implementing security measures. So right now, there are 1,200 public school districts in Texas, and I do not remember how many private schools there are. But just to let your listeners know, as of 2021, it was only as of 2021 that school marshals were allowed to carry concealed weapons around students. Before 2021, they had to have them stored in a locker. They had to be secured in the locker.
Yeah, I did see that note come up as part of it, and one of the major differences between the Marshall and the Guardian program, which we've been discussing this week.
Yes, there is a distinct difference, but I think school districts as a whole in Texas, these school districts need to look at implementing school marshals. It's not an easy curriculum. You have to go through psychological testing. You have to meet TCOL requirements.
That's very true here, but I think that there's as much as I have my own compunctions and feelings on all the solutions being put forth in different levels, and while we're still waiting for more clear answers on exactly what happened down here, one factor that I've been looking at, again, some other just outside factors outside of the situation I've been looking at, that if a response plan involves calling 911 as the primary response and not an on-site already, that is where some of the worst situations come out of, is what I've been seeing and reading.
Right. Oh, by the way, one of the worst school massacre, the worst school massacre, was committed by a guy named Andrew P. Kehoe. and that was back in 1927. Around 43 children were killed in Bath Township, Michigan. He ran a truck into the school laden with explosives.
Yep, dynamite, if I remember that case correctly here. So, yeah, evil will always find a way, and being prepared for it and having responses in place, regardless of the means of it, I think is incredibly important.
You know, do you know what that perpetrators? Well, he was a farmer, but you know what he also did? He was distraught and upset because he lost his reelection bid as a member of the school board.
Jeez, I'd forgotten that detail. Yeah.
Take care and have a good weekend.
You too as well. Hope you have a good Memorial Day weekend here. Tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll have a quick segment here, top up some of our comments here, and get to a whole lot more. Stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for an accident. Zaragoza northbound at the 10 Gateway, slowing traffic. I-10 westbound at Geronimo Drive. A 4-vehicle accident there. Crash got the left shoulder block. South Mesa Hills at Mesa Street, an injury accident. And police responding to a crash now at Zaragoza at Saul Kleinfeld Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
We'll bring you the story of how Pez, yes, the candy dispenser, made its way across the Atlantic Ocean from Austria, became a staple of American culture, and changed merchandising practices here as well. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
As the country bounces back from COVID and mask mandates are lifted, your business needs a lift too. Promote your company right here, right now. Radio ads connect with 93% of Americans every week. That's more than Google, more than Facebook, more than TV. In fact, radio reaches 20% more millennials than TV. Want more of the people you want to talk to all in one place? Visit iHeartAdvertising.com and get AM and FM working for you. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with a new way to enjoy our beautiful planet. Energy consumption is a primary contributor to a changing climate, producing around 27% of greenhouse gases in the United States. Save money and energy at home by turning off your computer completely before you go to bed. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Hey El Paso, Ivan Ochoa here, General Manager of Southern Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Once again, we were El Paso's #1 dealer in Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram sales in April. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas.
The Memorial Day sales event starts now at Southern Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. And there's never been a better time to get more for your old car, truck, or SUV. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we want it so you can save big on every new.
Did you know that were it not for a smallpox outbreak in a Continental Army camp during the Revolutionary War, Canada may never have existed? Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for tuning here to Talk El Paso. We are short timing it here before the top of the next hour here right now. So I wanted to let you know we got those calls on the line. We got those comments coming in Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. 915-544-5876. 544-KTSM is the number to call. Got another full hour to go, so stay tuned after this top of the hour news break. We'll have a lot of comments coming in from RJ, Flaco Jimenez, Eric, letting us know to just call him that, Ted Kors, Calvin Williams, Joey Carlson, and a whole lot more. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this quick break in the top of the hour news here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for an accident. Zaragoza northbound at the 10 Gateway, slowing traffic. I-10 westbound at Geronimo Drive. A 4-vehicle accident there. Crash got the left shoulder block. South Mesa Hills at Mesa Street, an injury accident. And police responding to a crash now at Zaragoza at Saul Kleinfeld Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
COVID-19 research has come a long way, but there's still more to understand about how to treat COVID-19 effectively. The Active-6 study is researching existing medications to find out if they may help people with COVID feel better and get back to the things they love faster. The best part? It can all be done from the comfort of home. We'll send medications to your door, and you'll take surveys completely online. Learn more at active6study.org/radio. That's activ6study.org/radio.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is the leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says he was misled about the police response to the Uvalde school shooting massacre. He told reporters every bit of information he was given from investigators yesterday was wrong.
The information that I was given turned out in part to be inaccurate, and I'm absolutely livid about that.
Police admitted they waited for nearly an hour for reinforcements before breaching the classroom door where the gunman was holed up. The Department of Public Safety director said it was the wrong decision. Abbott demanded a thorough investigation into what happened. Former President Trump is paying his respects to the victims of the Texas school massacre as he speaks at the NRA convention. He said it was incomprehensible that so many young lives were taken from us. He added that the shooter faces eternal damnation. Many Republicans have pulled out of the event. At least 5 people are dead and 2 others hurt after a house explosion in a Pennsylvania neighborhood. It happened in Pottstown last night, about 40 miles outside of Philadelphia. People living nearby say they heard a loud blast and thought it was a bomb. The U.S. Forest Service is issuing a stark warning for the Memorial Day weekend. Julie Ryan has more.
Last year, over 8,000 wildfires burned millions of acres across California, and most of those were human-caused. The U.S. Forest Service is reminding everyone that our drier-than-normal conditions are the perfect environment for wildfires. Explosives, fireworks, and combustion engines without a spark arrestor are illegal, with fines of up to $10,000. They want everyone to be able to enjoy our national forests and prevent wildfires by being proactive in keeping the forests safe.
The Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial is now in the hands of the jury. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Consumer sentiment is stuck at a 10-year low due to high inflation. The University of Michigan's final reading for May confirmed a more than 10% decline from April. The survey noted negative views on buying conditions for houses and big-ticket items, as well as the outlook for the economy. However, it found less than 1/4 of consumers expected to be worse off financially a year from now. The holiday weekend is getting underway as people start arriving at their getaway destinations. Natalie Migliori has more.
AAA projects this weekend is drawing more than 39 million people to drive 50 miles or more to get where they want to go, an 8% increase from last year.
This will be my first big outing. I'm just going down to Atlantic City from Long Island.
But some people are staying a little bit closer to home because of skyrocketing gas prices.
I paid $5.10 a gallon for gas. So instead of not seeing people, we're saying, okay, we'll meet halfway.
For those on staycation this weekend, New York City beaches are free and so is entry to New Jersey state parks. I'm Natalie Migliori, New York.
A run to the store pays off with a big winning lottery ticket. Scott Kimbler has the details.
A South Carolina man is now $2 million richer thanks to his milk run. The Chester man decided to buy the winning ticket after going to the grocery store because he was out of milk to put in his coffee. The Powerball ticket he purchased was a $1 million jackpot, and he paid $1 extra for the power play option and ended up doubling his earnings.
She's not a witch legally. After 330 years, Elizabeth Johnson Jr. is cleared of wrongdoing after she was convicted of witchcraft in the infamous Salem trials of 1693. Yesterday, the Massachusetts Senate voted to clear her name. Johnson was a 22-year-old woman living in North Andover when she got caught up in the trials along with with more than 170 others. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Bills. That's bills. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Want to impress your friends? Tell them you listen to Red Pilled America, the best storytelling show in the country. This week we tell the story behind the laptop from hell. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
When is the best time to talk to your family about staying in touch during a disaster? When floodwaters reach your door? When wildfires are engulfing the edge of your neighborhood? Or an earthquake is destroying buildings? When a tornado is tearing through town? Or a hurricane strikes? Or is the best time perhaps today? During a disaster, you may not be able to stay in touch with your family or friends as easily as you think. And it's not always as simple as using your cell phone. That's why now is the time to take action. Go to ready.gov/communicate and make your emergency plan today. Don't wait. Communicate. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey. Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, to this second hour of the show, the 5 o'clock hour going on strong on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and, of course, our Facebook pages. All of those under either Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. You can find us. You can chime in and get your 2 cents on, as that's what we're focused on today. Free for All Friday means we got both the phone lines open and your comments on deck throughout both hours of the program here. So if you're wanting to call in, that number to do so, 915-544-5876. 544 KTSM, and a lot of comments coming in over on the social media. Kathy Codry, Joey Carlson, Calvin Williams, RJ, Flaco Jimenez, Eric, letting us know to call him that, as I think he didn't appreciate my pronunciation of his last name. Mea culpa. I make no pretense at having Germanic pronunciation down. Ted Kors and a lot more tuning in, chiming in over there. Also dropping those reacts. We do appreciate Robert Haynes, Calvin Williams, Carl McKaig, Elicio Flores, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Flaco Jimenez. Appreciate all of that because it helps us with our mission to continue having live local talk radio in the borderlands. Some long posts getting posted up over there. You're more than welcome to. Just know that we won't be able to pop them up on screen because if they go past the character limit there, they just don't show up. So shorter, pithier ones may show up better to actually pop up on screen. But, of course, you're welcome to leave whatever you want. Eric asked a little bit earlier what happened to our society over the last 40 years. And Joey Carlson saying that analysis of country over country, comparing Mexico to the U.S. in shootings, among other things, and a whole lot more. Kevin Williams saying a little bit earlier they want no rifles for those under 18. That has been a part of the conversation already. See what the governor actually gets into. And a whole lot more comments coming up there. Also no alcohol for those under 21, but they want 16-year-olds to vote there. I mean, tobacco is already done for those under 21 as well. If you haven't had to buy cigarettes or had a young person trying to get them recently, I mean, I'm outside of that range myself, so it doesn't directly affect me, but yeah, a lot of stuff going on there. Joey Carlson also saying ran an after-school program in time with my students, 106 kids, accurate security and emotional support. I would have tagged that looser easily. Problem is government-run schools, vouchers are nothing. I mean, a lot of topics wrapped up in that here. So if you're wanting to call in and chime in on that yourself, Again, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Right now, we do have Johnny over in Central on the line with us right now. Johnny, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, to pick up what you said, not only that, you also need to be over 25 years old just to rent a car.
Yep, that's true.
But to go on with some of the comments that were said today, plus some of the things I've been witnessing on and off the news, I heard Ted Cruz said yesterday, talking about arming teachers and so forth and all this. And I've spoken with some teachers, and a lot of them are saying they didn't sign up for this, and they already have enough to do in a classroom. Somebody was mentioning something about the door being propped open and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
Already, I'm seeing blame being cast in all different directions about this shooting in Uvalde, Texas. I heard people saying, I heard Raul say something was right. The 90% is in charge, but it seems like the 10% run the country. And what really, really kind of bothers me and other people too, I think our elected officials are the only employees that can decide how they want to do the job, although they did not get hired by themselves. They got hired by us. But once they get in those positions, they decide to do what they want to do. The governor was actually a question today. He's been getting access all week about the handgun, and the long gun, as he called it, talking about 100 years ago, give or take, 18-year-old was able to have a long gun. Well, in my opinion, a long gun is a BB gun, a shotgun, all the way up to what we're talking about now. Matter of fact, I have a BB gun that my grandson gave me years ago, and I also have a 12-gauge single-shot shotgun that I haven't shot in years. And then if I was going to use it, I'm quite sure it would not be successful because it'd take me all day to try to load this thing. And then, on and on and on. Getting back to the arming the teachers. Okay, are you going to arm the people that go to church every day? Are you going to arm the people at the supermarkets? On and on and on. People, when they go to these places, they're not expecting to be attacked and killed. They're going somewhere for either to be educated or either for some leisure. So, and then just a couple of weeks ago, we was on this pro-life kick. Everybody was talking about the woman, shouldn't be able to do an abortion. Okay, if you are pro-life, then you should be anti-gun. They're quick to jump on the woman and have her put in jail, and the doctors and everybody else, but they want to protect this AR-15, the AK-47. Those are some really, really dangerous weapons. I was in two branches of the government. I was in the military and also served in the CBP and the Border Patrol. And we had handguns. And we went every year to learn to we would call it target practice every year to keep yourself kind of in tune, because the other 11 months hopefully you wouldn't have to pull out that handgun. So they're trying to blame these cops for not going in there for 40 minutes. Well, you're talking about somebody in there with a gun that can make mincemeat out of someone, and then they're trying to blame them about it. Well, okay, somebody might have made a mistake, and I'm not going to go on and on because I know you want to take other calls, but let me just kind of close with this. Someone mentioned, and I think it might be a good idea, that maybe these people, the families of these deceased kids maybe need to go with the Emmett Till deal. And what I mean by that, you heard about that, right? Just go ahead on and just put, because that's how Emmett Till was able to change things, because she showed how her child was maimed and mutilated. And I'm thinking, and I'm already hearing, you probably heard about this guy was ill over, doing all this different work on these kids last night. So closing by saying this, Albert Beto O'Rourke did the right thing by calling him out yesterday, because it is on him and all government leaders. I'm talking about Albert and all of them. All they have to do is put the brakes on these long weapons. These AR-15s and AK-47s, and you will stop a lot of this. They would not have gotten killed a few days ago with a assault weapon. He might have gone in there and tried to kill them with something else, but that assault weapon would not have been used if these people would have the gumption to do the right thing.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Okay.
I mean, I know that that's going to be probably the biggest point of contention in this upcoming, legislative session and, of course, nationally. I mean, we haven't touched much on that in this whole situation, but Friday is a good moment to do that. That, of course, there's been a talk of reviewing, among other things, the national assault weapons ban. That has come up both from Schumer and even Manchin out of West Virginia, though, again, the political will to actually see that done here. I mean, if there was national Democrats were ever actually going to try to do something, now would be their moment, but I don't know if it's going to be happening here. And given the vagaries probably coming out of the midterm election, I don't know if anything will come out after this point. And might not totally agree with you with the idea of the way some of these laws are being done here. I mean, doing something about it, I'm just in my analysis of these situations and how they happen, returning to the idea of a waiting period, because it seems the recency and the ability to get these things is a determining factor in a lot of the cases. I've not done by any means an extensive analysis or scientific analysis in any way, but to my mind, the notes and factors that I have been seeing and paying attention to, yeah, that definitely seems to be a factor in a lot of cases. So there may be some room there, some things to, be talked about. James Radcliffe, among other things, saying, why can't we ban politicians? You want to talk about changes in laws? The idea of having call it a jury selection system for political office. I've heard that suggested before as a way to still have representation, but now no politicians, because you can't actually campaign, would be an interesting idea. RJ responding to some further comments there, saying pro-life does not equal anti-gun. Even Jesus said to take up your sword. And Calvin Williams saying, is the governor also responsible for all the death on Texas highways? I mean, there's an interesting, that is an argument to be made. Certainly the idea that inaction in certain ways can be deemed as culpability, but can it be deemed in all ways? Certainly a debate to be had there. Edgar Ortiz with a longer comment saying, I have a bit of background with active shooter training, in fact, with a particular unit that eventually, the eventual executor of the monster in this case, I can affirm that upon response, all formal training calls for movement towards stimuli gunshots during an active shooter situation. Every one of those Leos were standing around before it was put to an end and will not sleep well for the rest of their lives. Yeah, if policy change doesn't come out of this, we have failed move one of this whole situation. So I'd fully expect that to happen, and we'll be incredibly unhappy if it does not. There's other words I want to use here, but I can't in this circumstance. But also the further idea that limiting, again, to a certain extent, I get it. The idea of you can get rid of all firearms, all implements of this style and of this way, that it might solve the problem. I almost get the reasoning there if it weren't for the fact that even what we're talking about here, the actual phrase that keeps being used around, and I get the compunction over the phrase itself here, the idea of assault weapons being the locus of the ban here. Assault weapon is a phrase that exists in mostly ban laws, but essentially nowhere else. It is a phrase that does not actually encompass really anything. There is a somewhat military use of it on the idea of there being basically an intermediate cartridge firearm that has a detachable magazine. But whenever you see it actually used in laws, it often goes down to non-actual dealing with the functionality of the firearm features, such as collapsible stocks, bayonet lugs, detachable magazines. That's about the only truly functional part. And this kind of legal, whack-a-mole that happens then. I mean, you look at California and New York. I've been having reason to study their laws even before this incident, and the way they deal with it. And I mean, there's the memes that go around of no one needs a weapon like this. This is a hunting rifle. This is a weapon of war, and the difference. And if you actually know anything about them, one is pointing to a 22 rifle as a weapon of war because it has it as the styling of the otherwise scary black rifle. When they're talking about like an M1 carbine, an actual literal weapon of war, but it has a wood stock and therefore looks less scary. So yeah, the misinformation and disinformation, just bad knowledge on this whole subject, far too often colors the situation. But I would fully expect, as you were referencing there, the Emmett Till situation, advocacy and more action being called for will probably come out of this and may define the lives, unfortunately, going forth of some of those involved in this here. Let's get to one more call here before we hit that next break. Again, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, I'll remind one of your, commenters that Jesus also said that he who lives by the sword dies by the sword. So the husband of one of the murdered teachers in the Uvalde died of a heart attack, leaving 4 orphans. How tragic. But the gun nuts' rights trump the safety and well-being of America's kids and the American people in general. There have been 6 mass shootings in Texas during goofy Governor Greg Abbott's governorship. And during a press conference this week, goofy Governor Greg Abbott blamed the mass shooting at the school on mental health issues. Yeah, mental health issues. Yet this 18-year-old man was allowed to buy assault weapons on his 18th birthday. Way to go, Texas Republicans and goofy Governor Abbott in protecting Texas. So where did this Uvalde kid killer get the money to buy these killing machines? Did he have a job? I heard he was a high school dropout. How much do these killing machines cost anyway? You know, critics say that Texas has missed plenty of opportunities to address mental health. Governor Abbott diverted money away from agencies in Texas that oversee mental health programs. And in recent reports, it's been disclosed that Texas is the worst state in the nation when it comes to providing access to mental health care. You know, Republicans are such hypocrites. They believe the more guns, the better. Yet the opposite is really the case. The statistics show that the more guns, the more gun deaths. But the hypocrite Republicans have not allowed guns at their national presidential conventions or at the NRA's annual national convention. What a bunch of hypocrites.
To your first point there, let me just ask you this question real quick on the idea of mental health issues, yet this person was allowed to purchase a gun here. Should someone that has, say, even, a documented history of getting drunk, should they be necessarily prevented from, say, buying a vehicle or operating a motor vehicle more generally?
Perhaps, but that's not what I'm talking about. You know, El Paso's former congressman and city representative Beto O'Rourke refused, he said about Abbott, he has refused to support a ban on AR-15s and AK-47. And Beto asked, why are we letting this happen in our country? Why are we letting this happen in our state? Year after year, we refuse to do something. O'Rourke said that the shooter should not have been able to buy an AR-15. And Beto went on to list some solutions. Stop selling AR-15s in the state of Texas. Have universal background checks. Texas doesn't have them. Pass red flag laws on extreme risk protection orders, which stop a shooting before it happens. Require safe storage laws. So there are solutions, and he says that each of these has broad partisan support. But instead, Governor Abbott and the Republicans have made it easier for people to buy guns. Now, one of your callers also called Democrats demons. Yet he's probably a Trumper and a supporter of a career criminal and con man whose ethics are money and sex, who bragged about serially sexually assaulting women and is accused by 24 women of sexual assault. So he's the only president in U.S. history to be impeached for planning a coup. Trump is diabolical and demonic. Another hypocrite there who calls up and calls Democrats hypocrites and demons. Well, look at this guy.
I really got to question what you think you're going to achieve by saying this. Like, I fully get your opinion, and you're certainly entitled to it, but if you're really trying to change minds about this, I wonder if that's really what you're thinking is going to be achieved by this. Like, well, you know what? I've heard these points now several times, and you know what? I think there's a point there, because if you're really wanting people to agree with you, more or less, I got to wonder how you think that's going to be achieved here, because otherwise it kind of just feels like you're browbeating people who don't agree with you. And that's not necessarily something strictly prohibited on this program, but definitely not something I would like to think we encourage, because the idea of having discussion and, letting people debate the facts, weigh them for themselves, and come to their own conclusions is, well, kind of a tenet of, society and our government and the way this country has worked overall. But the idea of saying, well, you're wrong, and I'm going to do everything I can to stop you and make sure you don't have power is, well, maybe the national plan that we have existed on largely here, but I just want to make that pretty clear that being considered acceptable and the right way to go, at least on this program, probably isn't going to work out well in your favor in the long run here. So thanks for the point in the call. We got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more comments, calls, and discussion about these issues of the day, because among other things, we have a lot more things going on in the area affecting, including that mayoral veto coming out in the last 24 hours to the latest city manager contract. But I'm sure we'll have a lot more conversation about this, as we do, of course, have on Fridays here. So if you're wanting to call in, adding your 2 cents in response here, of course, that number to call, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
News Radio 690.
A stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder, I-10 westbound at Mesa Street. Got an accident that's slowing traffic Zaragoza northbound at the 10 Gateway. Watch for a disabled vehicle blocking the right shoulder, Joe Battle Boulevard northbound at Bob Hope Drive. And an injury accident on Pebble Hills west of George Dieter at Amarillo Street. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by TxDOT. Wearing a seatbelt in a pickup increases your chances of surviving a serious crash by 60%. That's because pickup trucks are more likely to roll over in a crash. Click it or ticket. A message from the Texas Department of Transportation.
On the new true crime podcast Betrayal, a woman chronicles her fairy tale romance gone horribly wrong. Her husband's secret life destroyed their marriage, shook their community, and ultimately sent him to prison.
Going through Spence's emails, Snapchat, whatever I could get my hands on. Just a punch in the gut every single time.
Listen to Betrayal on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Brought to you by DuckDuckGo. Search, browse, and email privately, all for free with the DuckDuckGo app.
Wondering if the COVID vaccine is right for your child? If you can trust it? Want to know what a healthcare professional would say? I'm Dr. Ada Stewart, Board Chair, American Academy of Family Physicians. We want you to know it's important for all children 5 and older to get a COVID vaccine, because we know that millions of cases of COVID have been in kids. You can trust the COVID vaccine for yourself and for your kids. I do.
We can do this. Find a vaccine near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If you have a small business, Staples has your sign.
Banners for my bakery?
Staples has your sign.
Oh, posters for my new pet store.
Floor decals for a pharmacy. Every day, Staples associates help every kind of small business create bold signs to make big impressions. And now get $10 off custom signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. This is your sign, so print it big at Staples. N72. Visit staplesconnect.com/thisisyoursign for details.
Chances are you're jamming in your car right now. And since Liberty Mutual customizes car insurance, so you only pay for what you need, Limu and I are going to show you some safe car dance moves. Hit it. Everybody, check your blind spots real quick. Now hands on the wheel. Put them 10 in 2 and move your head like a bird do. Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on our various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to get us. A lot of comments coming in from the various pages. Ion Graham, Kathy Codry, James Radcliffe, Edgar Ortiz, Maria Coleman, Joey Carlson, Calvin Williams, Ted Kors, and more tuning in, chiming in here on all these subjects, also dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate Robert Haynes, Calvin Williams, Carl McCaig, Eligio Flores, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Flaco Jimenez. Just helps us with all the things we talk about and do here, try to have on the program in terms of actually talking about the things affecting us here in the borderland. A little bit beyond that today, of course, as we have on Fridays, Free for All Fridays, taking your comments and calls throughout both hours of the program here. So if you want to call in, that number to do so, 915-544-5876. 544-KTSM. One comment coming in right now. Ion Grimm disagreeing with our previous caller there a bit, saying that doesn't like people who think on their own and have a fixation on Trump, being forever repulsive on talking about Biden and little girls there. You can see it for yourself here. I think the punctuation's a little bit off. Maria Coleman saying you can join the military at 18. Many of these individuals have zero firearms experience. My comment, unfortunately so, but continuing on with what she said, but they will be instructed on how to kill. Some are never the same after their service, but killing in the name of your country is accepted. Even if the target was collateral damage, do we ban these individuals from obtaining firearms? That is one of the major issues that has come up with the idea of, as was mentioned, red flag laws and even the essentially input of mental health into this system. I mean, sure, if someone has been institutionalized, that's one thing. But more specifically, the idea of there being, service and service-related issues, PTSD, among other things, precluding former service members to be able to own firearms has been, well, more than a sticking point in previous times. That part of the conversation has come up here. Edgar Ortiz also saying, on a local note, Representative Escobar was in Anthony, Texas this week for a photo op, which she didn't take any questions, though. I mean, she has previously held town halls and other appearances. I know that she had at least some floor speeches this week, but I mean, yeah, again, accessibility, availability, and transparency of elected officials is, well, at the very least, one of the ways I judge, well, qualifications of elected officials. But let's go back to those phone lines right now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We have Landon on the line here with us right now. Landon, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you, Andrew.
Sure thing.
I worked in counter narcotics as a Marine, and one of the points on these radical gun control agendas, and a great example why gun control fails to keep guns out of the hands of violent criminals, is Mexico. Mexico has some of the most draconian gun control laws in the world. There's one gun store. It's almost impossible in the whole country. It's almost impossible to get a permit, and yet you have 100,000 deaths in the Mexican drug wars. Not allowing decent people to defend themselves with firearms against a criminal element only makes them vulnerable. I think we could improve background checks. I've seen some ideas of maybe raising the age limit for purchasing a firearm for semi-automatic centered fire rounds to 21. There's a lot of common sense solutions out there to lessen these types of incidents, but disarming law-abiding people is not a good one.
Yeah, another kind of maybe stretching analogy I've heard is the idea that there can be violence by something you own has kind of been, therefore getting rid of it. It's kind of like pulling out your own teeth just because a wolf has fangs. And I mean, the idea of essentially breaking it down to its very legal basis, the idea of having civil consequences upon those that have had no activity or action in a criminal enterprise, but because they have the same capacity to do so in the future, is generally not how our law works. And I mean, some of the proposals that have come forth here, I mean, one of the key points actually of the assault weapons ban that happened in 1994 was actually a non-retroactive clause, basically a grandfather clause. And the idea of some of the things coming forth being essentially, yeah, you're going to have to give up everything is one of the major sticking points. I haven't heard it come back with that, but I think there are things that can be done. I haven't heard anyone saying anything against, except for the availability of funding or not, for the idea of greater school security and efforts on that end, which I think, regardless of any legal action taken, is necessary. So any quibbling on that, I take a very dim view of. But, well, we'll see what happens. I think, well, the national situation is, of course, I was going to say what happened in November would be one thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Andrew, just for perspective, rifles of all types, including semi-automatic rifles, hunting rifles, are responsible for a few hundred homicides every year, some of them defensive. But knives, for example, are responsible for more than 400% more homicides than rifles. But we don't ban cutlery, or when we have someone on a subway that goes into a mass stabbing episode.
I mean, the simple fact of the matter is, and why I sometimes have some issues for when it comes down to the whole idea of gun deaths, we are also often including in the national statistics suicides into that, but even then, the actual amount of crime committed with long guns, again, the scary black rifles as they often get thought about here, is a significant, and I do mean significant, minority of any gun crime, period. It is not these weapons that are being used in places like, I want to talk about, like Chicago, like LA, the crime capitals as often get referred to here that also have, of course, some of the most stringent gun laws. It's handguns. And the fact that that constantly goes overlooked is one of the reasons I find myself having issue with when we talk about, not just referencing what you're talking about there, but the other times the common sense label is used on gun control laws, is that that's often never a part of it. It's the most emotional, the most imagination capturing, essentially, incidents that have happened that on their own, while tragic, I'm not going to say that it was a minor incident that happened in Uvalde. No one in their right mind would refer to it as such. But when you do look at the overall, the flat statistics on it, those actual incidents, while they get the most attention, are the vast minority of anything that happens involving firearms in general. I think we lost Landon there. Well, thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. I mean, this subject is fraught with emotions. It is fraught with political ideology as a part of it here. I am not surprised that the O'Rourke campaign is renewing calls for that after there was some lukewarm softening of it kind of in the middle of the campaign there before this incident, saying, no, in favor of the Second Amendment, but I don't like Texas's new gun laws. Of course, we've gone back to very similar type of rhetoric that we saw even during the presidential campaign, and I cannot say I am surprised about that, and we'll probably continue to see that evolve as we get closer to, well, the election itself here. What I was saying there before Landon jumped back in was that the idea of the midterm elections having an impact on this, I mean, anyone can regularly see that because, say, Democrats retain control of even one house, any action going through will probably be confounded, though the trajectory I kind of expect, even still to this point, with a lot of vagaries of the major political issues of the day going on, is that there will probably be loss of control of one, if not both houses, even if the presidency is still, of course, held until, well, all of the things being equal, until 2024, that there may not be much movement, if at all, on this. But if, say, they were actually to maintain control or even expand it, just playing this out here, them actually doing something about it, like the assault weapons ban. I mean, there have been other points in time, even at points when there have been other administrations in place that have not been fond of it, that there has been control held by Democrats and not much action happened. Though I think the worst thing that could happen out of all of this is the status quo being maintained. There being literally no action, because saying like, well, this happened, let's just move on from it. That has happened far, far, far too many times before. So not even allowing there to be, among other things, actions changing with school security, the funding availability for it. And that, going back to a previous caller's point here on the idea of putting this on teachers. Yeah, I mean, we already have a teacher situation in this state and task force going and trying to deal with teacher recruitment, pay. And I think saying, oh, and by the way, you have to be essentially a part-time security guard or be ready to be one is not going to work in that favor. So as much as I'm fully in favor of the ability to teachers to have that capability, if they decide to, I think at least a little bit, I don't think it's totally baked in with those programs that we've talked about, the Marshall or the Guardian program, but I think at least in some of our elected officials' minds, it's been well, that's a solution there. We don't have to do anything else. And that's what cannot be allowed to continue to happen as we look towards all of these elections that we got coming up here. Make sure you're registered to vote. I'll beat that drum here very briefly, but we got to hit that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll certainly get to more comments, more calls, more everything on the line here. So if you're wanting to chime in, of course, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We're getting into it, and we'll continue to do so throughout the rest of the program here. Comments on the line, calls as well, 915-544-5876. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned. If you're looking to take care of yourself, it's always important to do so, maybe even more important than ever right now. Something I do to make sure that I'm feeling good. Self-care is kind of a word that applies here that you might not often think about it when it talks about, well, your hair and appearance. But taking pride in yourself and your appearance and looking good, feeling good, so to speak, is absolutely an important thing for me. And where I go to take care of part of that is with Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Men's Spa. You can find them, of course, online at gentsrepublic.com, GENTS.republic.com, or give them a call at 915-532-3000, 915-532-3000. I've got my appointments scheduled because going to them, taking care of myself, and getting all of the hair on my head, that's who I trust them with, because Well, we got some of the video stuff that we do, of course, but even in your regular life, looking good, feeling good, taking care of yourself, and truly getting to feel like a king for a day is ever so important. Particularly with Father's Day coming up, we have some giveaways coming up that I will slightly hint at a little bit further. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, make sure you get your appointment set so that you're ready to go with Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Men's Spa. Again, online at gentsrepublic.com, GENTSrepublic.com, and give them a call at 915-532-3000. That's 915-532-3000.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olgain with your KFOX 14 News Update. Some local school districts are pushing for more school resource officers in the wake of the Uvalde, Texas school shooting. The Gadsden School District has 27 campuses, yet only one of them has a school resource officer. That's at Santa Teresa Middle School. In Las Cruces, the school district says it's been dealing with a shortage of school resource officers, but promises that by next year, they will be fully staffed throughout middle schools and high schools with school resource officers. Former El Paso congressman and candidate for governor of Texas, Beto O'Rourke, spoke at a huge protest in Houston today. The demonstration took place in front of the venue where the NRA is holding its annual convention this weekend. Thousands gathered today to call on the Rifle Association to cancel its event in the wake of the Uvalde shooting. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has canceled his appearance at that convention, but it's set to continue this weekend. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olgain.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Checking El Paso freeways, looking pretty good right now. The I-10 eastbound is slow between Artcraft and Thorne with 5-minute delays. Injury accident, Wrestler Drive northbound, just about a block north of Belvedere. A stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder, Americas Avenue at Zaragoza in the Low Valley, and Zaragoza at Saul Kleinfeld. Police on the scene of an accident there, too. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Studios, I'm forecaster Vania Castillo. We're in for some dry and hot conditions here in the borderland starting Friday, continuing into Saturdays. We'll also be seeing those winds become breezy to windy this weekend and continuing into early next week. Now, temperatures are going to be pretty warm this weekend as we are expecting to see temperatures in the triple digits for your Saturday and Friday, but we do see them cool down a little bit for your Sunday.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's $5 Biggie Bag. Wendy's Biggie Bag is still just $5. Get a double stack junior bacon cheeseburger or crispy chicken BLT plus 4-piece nugs, small fries, and a small drink. Grab your bag at Wendy's today. U.S. price and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Alaska and Hawaii.
Hey El Paso, Ivan Ochoa here, General Manager of Southern Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Once again, we were El Paso's #1 dealer in Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram sales in April. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas.
The Memorial Day sales event starts now at Southern Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, and there's never been a better time to get more for your old car, truck, or SUV. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we want it so you can save big on every new and certified pre-owned vehicle in our huge inventory. 2022 Ram 1500 trucks with 0 APR for 60 months. All new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer full-size SUV with third row seating. 0 APR for 60 months. 0 payments for 90 days. Plus, we have aggressive lenders with great rates and terms, even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Southern Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Southern Park Drive or online at southernparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR is $16.67 per thousand financed on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
If your summer plans include a new job, let Express Employment Professionals help. Visit expresspros.com for good local jobs in a variety of roles. With 850 locations, your local Express team is ready to help you find your next job. Go to expresspros.com. This report is sponsored by expresspros.com.
Did you just look down at your phone? You did it again, didn't you? You know, you're flying down the road in a 3-ton hunk of steel, and a text takes your eyes off the road for an average of 5 seconds. At 55 miles per hour, that's long enough to travel the length of a football field and cause some serious damage. Turn it off. Trust me, whatever it is, you'll live.
Learn more at stoptextsstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in. However you may be doing so, a lot of ways to chime in on the show. A lot of topics we've covered here today so far as we continue our mission to have live local talk radio in the borderland. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch are the social pages to find us on, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. A lot of commentary coming in there. Eric mentioning that no one ever mentions that the word gun never appears in the Second Amendment. My contribution there. The authors used the word arms, maybe because they didn't want to limit our ability to fight tyranny. That's one argument that I've seen come up a little bit, but not exactly in this case. The idea that, the Founding Fathers, semi-automatic rifles couldn't have existed. There's no way that they could have, known what could be possible with arms of the day. And yeah, that's just an intellectually bankrupt argument. Because to say that the Founding Fathers, there's no way they could have imagined this, therefore it doesn't apply. They could have imagined the medium we're on right now. Radio, internet, TV. The internet would have literally probably blown someone's mind back in the 1700s. So yeah, as much as I think that the Constitution does for a lot of the points mean as it's written, though not in the kind of a constructuralist or the strict textualist kind of interpretation that sometimes get done, the idea that it does not apply to modern situations is just bunk. So we'll agree with that there as well. Raul Amaya commenting back actually that no plan to harbor any illusions that I'm going to change the minds of predominantly Trumper audience here. Then goes on to say further, you can see the full comment for yourself here, but Edgar Ortiz going on further to say, why do you assume all conservatives are Trump supporters? That assumption is getting really old. And okay, I mean, it is not at all a requirement on the show to convince anyone of anything. We exist to put out opinions and have discussion on them here, but there's a difference, I will say, between putting out your sincerely held opinion and the idea and of having a conversation versus browbeating someone over it and saying, and therefore, if you don't agree, I mean, a lot of the commentary that comes from that whole angle, and frankly has happened well before this program, and anyone who has particularly commented on it is I've shown you that why the person you like is bad. It often comes down to, why for don't you agree with me? And that's just not how politics work. Frankly, I think there are a lot of people locally and nationally who held their nose and cast their vote because just because you may not totally like someone on one side of the political side doesn't mean that you therefore have to agree with the opposite interpretation, because unfortunately, as the way this country is set up, yes, we have two parties and those predominantly hold the power just the way it is. There's not much, unless we really start to get into some Article 1, Section 1 amendments to the Constitution, that is going to change. Also, Eric noting here that in the 1790s, private citizens owned gunships. Cannons were not infrequently owned, and you talk about the Paul Revere ride. That was what the redcoats in that whole scenario were going to seize. Not a bunch of muskets, but literal cannons, among other things. And so the idea that the Constitution is limited only by the time it was written in is just, it's just, you're not going to have a good time trying to make that argument to me. I'm just going to say. But again, the idea that therefore, if I have shown why the person that you otherwise have voted for is a bad person, you automatically have to agree with me, that does not work out. Just plain and simple. So that's why, sure, it's not a requirement that you convince anyone of anything on this program. But if you come to it with a sincere idea of actually wanting to discuss things, yes, that's probably the better way it's going to go for. And frankly, I live. It gives me serious life when we have those moments of when people of otherwise conflicting views may find something in the middle that they can agree upon or some kind of common course and common action. I think that is a, maybe by the wayside lately, but an inherently American trait and ideal, and one that, we've constructed the show for the reasons that we have in order to facilitate that whenever it can, but not, again, a strict expectation it'll ever happen. I just very much find it encouraging and gives me, again, further hope for the future of this country whenever it does happen. So, again, you're welcome, of course, going to have whatever opinion you have. I'm not out here to convince much of anything, but there are certain, I call my shot, and when I think that we need certain inavoidable concepts to be upheld, you're going to find me on the side of it. And anyway, a couple other things I want to mention before we get too much further out of the show here today is that, yes, the saga of the city manager has, of course, continued on with, the mayor saying that he has now vetoed the renewed contract coming in within the last 24 hours late Thursday, specifically canceling the contract extension approved by City Council as of this Monday. I know we've had a lot of other topics in the meantime, but you can basically assume that this is going to keep coming up because although one difference now is, of course, that there is a supposedly veto-proof majority that has approved this matter. So this could come back out of as soon as next week that there is an override to this veto, further setting up further conflict on this whole issue with this contract extension of course, current city manager Tommy Gonzalez until 2029, with the current contract as it exists right now until 2024. Leeser, quoted by, among others, El Paso Matter, saying, I haven't talked to council about it. I think that they have the support to uphold the veto because it's very important, and I know the community is behind it. So, yeah, local issues certainly going to be coming back into, well, all of these issues here. A lot of comments coming in on all this subject here. Flaco Jimenez letting us know, go Celtics. Yes, I know we got the playoffs going. Maria Coleman saying that berating someone rarely brings them over to your side or sways their opinion. And again, that sheer debatability of issues. Well, I definitely prefer that, but your persuasiveness is not a sole judge of what we take calls on in this program, obviously. But if you don't at least have it in mind, the ability of, slight convincibility, then it's just berating. I'll agree with that. James Ratcliffe saying, why are they pushing this contract so bad? Are there under the table deals going on? I know that has come up a little bit here. Maria Coleman actually not buying it, saying political grandstanding by Leeser all show. This, of course, is his third veto since he has returned to office in this term of office. After, of course, he was mayor previously, but we're just talking solely about ever since he defeated Dee Margo as mayor in this most recent election, saying that, he's not in favor of this extension and that potential pay increase. I think this is my divining here, so no one's exactly, I'm not quoting anyone on this, but that still continuing 5% increase every year is probably a little bit of a sticking point, because even with the idea of $450,000 a year coming out of the previous contract being removed from this most recent resubmission that has happened, I think there's still more than a few people thinking, and also the I'm going to call it the golden parachute, the money, the probably roughly $1 million that the city would be on the hook for on any point here. Yeah. Edgar Ortiz saying, for argument's sake, I will bring up the point that the city manager has brought in millions in contract money and tax revenue to the city. And that is, I know so occasionally it has come up by individuals asking, okay, what are the accomplishments of the city manager? A couple of releases have happened on this, including claiming around $227 million have been saved by the efforts to the city's coffers by the city manager. But in answer to James Ratcliffe's question, I don't know about any underhanded deals because, well, by their very nature, it'll take probably a little bit more investigation to get into those. We'll see what comes out. But that what has been stated by city council members themselves is that since he gave up that potential position in Frisco, there's the feeling of the need to compensate him justly or make it worth his while, so to speak. That's more my word than theirs. But again, this is going to be coming up further, so stay tuned for more on that next week here. With that, we got to take our last break and close out the show for the week. So stay tuned for this last bit, and of course, tell you what we got coming up on our air, all of our programming here with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. We got a couple of comments we'll get to here, a couple of replays and such, because don't forget, you can also leave us messages in between the shows, but all of that and more coming up after this break. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
An accident slowing traffic on the I-10 eastbound at the Giles Road exit. Expect delays there. 54 Patriot northbound in Montana. Stalled vehicle blocking the left shoulder. An accident with police on the scene. Zaragoza northbound at the 10 Gateway. And another Zaragoza Road accident at Saul Kleinfeld. Police still working that one. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's $5 Biggie Bag. Wendy's Biggie Bag is still just $5. Get a double stack junior bacon cheeseburger or crispy chicken BLT plus 4-piece nugs, small fries, and a small drink. Grab your bag at Wendy's today. U.S. price and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Alaska and Hawaii.
Wondering if the COVID vaccine is right for your child? If you can trust it? Want to know what a healthcare professional would say? I'm Dr. Gerald Harmon. I'm the president of the American Medical Association. So we want you to know it's important for all children 5 and older to get a COVID vaccine, because we know millions of cases of COVID have been in kids. You can trust the COVID vaccine for yourself and for your kids. I do.
We can do this. Find a vaccine near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Radio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. A staggering 8 million tons of plastic ends up in the world's oceans every year. If current trends continue, our oceans could contain more plastic than fish by 2050. Do your part. Purchase items made from renewable or recycled content and recycle whenever possible. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
If you have a small business, Staples has your sign.
Banners for my bakery?
Staples has your sign.
Oh, posters for my new pet store.
Floor decals for a pharmacy.
Every day, Staples associates help every kind of small business create bold signs to make big impressions. And now get $10 off custom signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. This is your sign, so print it big at Staples. N72. Visit staplesconnect.com/thisisyoursign for details.
Chances are you're jamming in your car right now. And since Liberty Mutual customizes car insurance, so you only pay for what you need, Limu and I are going to show you some safe car dance moves. Hit it. Everybody, check your blind spots real quick. Now hands on the wheel. Put them 10 in 2 and move your head like a bird do. Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. I want to thank each and every one of you who have tuned in, called in, commented, even just watched the show and stay informed about, well, the things going on, taking us in the borderland, but of course the discussion going on and staying abreast of that, because I think that's, an overlooked responsibility. I'm actually going to call it here, not necessarily just to watch this show, but to be informed and knowledgeable about what's going on, because, well, if you're not, we see what happens there. Bad things, but also not be knowing what it is, making informed decisions for yourself. It's not a good way to go through life. What's the phrase? If you're going to be stupid, you better be tough. Not a good way. Not a credo I follow in my life here, but we've had a lot of comments. We've covered a lot of ground here, and we'll, of course, continue to do that Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. here on the show. A couple of things we're working on for future shows here. Of course, talking about those supply chain issues. In fact, some of the supply chain issues have stymied a little bit of our interviews going on, planning for that, but we got more on the line for you, as well as some other political things going on in town, including, well, among other things, things could end up on the ballot here with climate initiatives and stuff here. So we are definitely going to be talking further about those things. We're not going to be on the air on Monday. We'll say that for Memorial Day. We're going to be off the holiday. There will be programming in place relevant for the day, don't worry, but we'll be back live on Tuesday. Definitely would encourage everyone as much as possible to consider the important things that the days that are coming up do mention. If you're going to grill, I don't begrudge you that, but don't think that this is the official kickoff for grilling season. Memorial Day is there to remember those that served and made the ultimate sacrifice in order to, well, guarantee everything that we do have in this country today as we continue our mission to, well, pursue a more perfect union. So please keep that in mind. And again, that event that is going to be going on tomorrow, Saturday, May 28th at the Fort Bliss National Cemetery, putting out those Memorial Day flags, 7:30 a.m., 5200 Fred Wilson Avenue. Did I say Labor Day? I did not mean to say Labor Day, Memorial Day. Anyway, and also I got corrected the other day. I apparently had missaid with one of those fires going on that it was 167 acres. It's 167,000 acres, and it's actually a whole lot worse now. According to the state of New Mexico, that black fire has now grown to nearly 200,000 acres. So stay safe out there. I mean that in a whole lot of ways. But in any case, I hope you all have a good Memorial Day weekend, because that is, of course, what is coming up here. So we're going to be off for Memorial Day, but we'll be back with you live next week on Tuesday. Again, thank you to everyone who has tuned in, called in, commented, participated in the show. Y'all really help make it what it is. But we will continue to have this mission, talk about everything going on affecting us in the borderland. So stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road. Don't drink and drive. And, of course, have a wonderful weekend. Tune in for the El Paso History Radio Show tomorrow with a focus on veterans. Stay tuned, y'all. See you then.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the I-10 eastbound at Giles Road, a multi-vehicle crash is blocking the right lane there. Expect delays. Memorial Highway 375 northbound at Vista del Sol, a crash there with police responding. On Wrestler Drive northbound north of Belvedere by about a block, an injury accident and police responding to a crash downtown, Stanton and San Antonio Avenue. Terry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
COVID-19 research has come a long way, but there's still more to understand about how to treat COVID-19 effectively. The Active 6 study is researching existing medications to find out if they may help people with COVID feel better and get back to the things they love faster. The best part? It can all be done from the comfort of home. We'll send medications to your door, and you'll take surveys completely online. Learn more at active6study.org/radio. That's activ6study.org/.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. That's your regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is the leading cancer killer, but can be prevented with regular screenings starting at age 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
It's important to know what's going on, especially around the world.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station. News on the hour and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Police in Texas are admitting they made a mistake during the elementary school mass shooting. Parents of the 19 children shot and killed at Robb Elementary in Uvalde learned today police waited for nearly an hour for reinforcements before breaching the classroom door where the gunman was holed up. Meantime, Governor Greg Abbott says he was misled. Abbott told reporters every bit of information he was given from investigators yesterday was wrong. Former President Trump claims Democrats are using the Texas school massacre for their advantage.
Every time a disturbed or demented person commits such a hideous crime, there's always a grotesque effort by some in our society to use the suffering of others to advance their own extreme political agenda.
While addressing the NRA convention in Houston, he claimed President Biden said Republicans are okay with school shootings. He pressed for more cops at schools and more security measures at schools, including teachers with guns. People are protesting outside